Here we go. Welcome back to this second part of our recording and podcast video session with Cassie. Welcome back to the studio.
Thank you, everyone.
We've been going through for the past 25 minutes in the first part of this session, the build-up. So you passed PD2 and then you realized the scope of the work needed for passing PD3. You spoke also a lot about how to get the right tools available for your preparation. You talked about, let me share my screen, I made some notes. You talked about getting your hands on or access to my website, learningwithirvin.com, with the PD3 course that contains a lot of videos and slides and important information. And as you mentioned, that was like back in June and July. By then, that's how you got to know me. I was offering a free seminar, a late night seminar for people wanting to pass PD3. And then you reached out to me. I think it must have been in August or September. Do you remember?
August.
It was August, yeah.
Yeah.
And you asked to have a first class with me. And I think very quickly we agreed that we would have the lesson on Mondays around noon, because you are busy with work, you work in IT, you have a busy schedule, but you decided that you realized that lunchtime on Mondays would be a good time for you, because when you're home, you have family life, you have a wonderful little daughter who enjoys taking all of your time and attention. And I think that's an important aspect to keep in mind as well, is that many of people in your situation, you come to Denmark knowing that it's a country that is probably a fairly good place to be if you want to have a stable life with family and good opportunities also for your daughter in the future. And I know because we had a dinner, we ate out together the other day, and we talked about why Denmark, because Denmark is cold and rainy and expensive, and there's the challenge of learning the language. So there's and this also at the ministry level or at the government level, I know that a lot of experts and academics are thinking, how can we brand Denmark in the best way possible despite the challenges? Because you are, as a skilled IT person, I know you got some offers around the world. You worked in Indonesia, you worked as a freelancer, you got a very good offer in Ireland, but at the end of the day, you decided on Denmark. Do you just want to say a few brief words on why Denmark, despite the challenges I mentioned?
Yeah, first is because Denmark, if you see the history, Denmark is consistently being in place of like in first three positions when it comes to work-life balance. People, are they really happy about it and things like that? And I have seen a lot of videos about this and documentaries when I was in Indonesia or Philippines. And time to time we go through and we have a fair understanding how the Scandinavian life is. And one fine day, I came to know about the opportunity, how whether if I can get in this country, so-called Denmark. And then by God's grace, everything went very smooth, and I got a placement. And even though my aim is to be mostly on like a freelancer, I decided to pursue a permanent job in Denmark, just because of the history, rich history, how the Denmark is having in terms of work-life balance, people friendliness. The most important thing is the genuineness. If you even look at my response in the beginning of this podcast, I was not really sure whether I will stay in Denmark in a longer period. That was in 2017. That was my mindset. That's because I need to consider my how my body is going to react, how my wife is going to react when it comes to winter.
Okay.
So all those things we were considering it, and we came to know that the negatives are very, very small when compared to what kind of positives we see here, like the government The people, main importantly, especially during COVID, the cooperation between the people and the government is really awesome.
Mhm.
I can directly relate with many other countries where I was been before.
Okay.
I was working in different countries, at least 15 different countries.
Wow.
I would say minimum of 3 months, if we count in that way. And from that fact, when we go to supermarket, the way people were dealing the situation of corona, even starting from supermarket, metro station, everywhere, it was awesome. And then that's the moment I felt that the decision that I took in early 2020
Yeah.
is actually very much valuable. I read the country in a right manner. I realized I'm in the right place.
Yeah.
So I really need to capitalize the situation and seal the location. Yeah.
Wow. It's interesting that you're saying that the way you saw the government and the society in Denmark handle COVID was a good way of checking, a good reality check to see if this country has its act together and can figure it out and care for its people and so on. And we did get through COVID in a fairly good and fast and efficient way. Not
Mm.
perfect, and it was a lot of testing and very expensive, but good. So that made you realize, okay, this is it. This works. This country works for me. Now, another question. You wanted to do PD2, you passed PD2, and you aim for PD3, you passed PD3. Why so important? Why so important for you to get this box checked and get PD3 done and out of the way?
Um, because I would say two fundamental reasons. The main reason is obviously just like everybody, we need to go through the administration process. If you like the country, if you want to learn the culture, if you want to make sure whatever you have learned that you want to use it in future, you need to make sure you have full control with respect to the location. And to do that, we need to clear PD3. In my case, it was not that easy. I had to really work hard to get there, but I feel it's a good thing to have that check. Not only we are learning the language, while we learn the language, we also get an opportunity to learn the culture of Danish. How, as a student, how a Dan would react, how Dan would think, as a teacher, how one would do, as a doctor, how one thinks about it, even as a boutique assistant, how one reacts to it. So I have learned a lot of things. What I overall I can say, a person in Denmark is usually very genuine, very patient enough, have good understanding about the surroundings, and those things are very impressive. I may sound like adding a lot of creamy things, but these are all my own experience, and I really felt that it is a good thing. And that's why to communicate with people, I feel this language is important. When I speak something, even though I make mistakes, if I speak in Danish to a Dane, they feel happy about it, and they are very much interested to rectify my mistakes despite the fact that I'm making it. And when I go on more stress, when I want to really speak in Danish, then they help me out how I can say. And sometimes every single person, starting from any kind of background, they are able to speak in English as well, which is very important to be noted. Which is really a plus for a foreigner, because they are able to communicate flawlessly. But at the same time, in return, if we speak in Danish, they feel good about it, and they know that we are trying to adapt the culture, and they support that one. And having that in place, we can take one of the important points to feel home, because when you are at home, when you are in a home country, three main things what we don't even realize is that our food culture, our tradition, our language. We don't realize it. but if we miss it, then we start to realize it. So if we want to feel this country as our home, at least as a second home, then I feel we need to know the language, at least decent enough to respond back. And then as a secondary, we need to know the culture, how we celebrate, for example, Poksea, Yule. So all these things, at least the important points with respect to the festive would help to know better and gel each other in future.
Those are all really nice and beautiful and positive things to say and mention. And I know they mean a lot to you and also to many of our listeners. But there's obviously also, as you mentioned, one of the first things, an administrative reason, difference between PD2 and PD3. I think it takes longer to apply for permanent residence in Denmark. If you only have a PD2, I think it's 8-9 years. And if you clear PD3, you can apply after 4 or 5 years. I'm not sure about the details. That's it. I know that is something that is very important to many foreigners. They're fed up with applying for this visa and that visa, or being scared of being kicked out of the country the day they don't have a work, because work is of the essence in this country. So in that sense, well, all the things you said were very, very nice. And I think it's important to mention that PD3 is an administrative box to tick to quicken the path to having less, hurdles and feel that you can stay here for the long term. As you said, with COVID, you realize this is a country where you want to stay for long term, like probably 5, 10, 15 years, we don't know, or more, or the rest of your life. But so in that sense, PD3 helps you also understanding the food, the culture, the traditions, and to be able to communicate with Danes, which they really appreciate. And then also knowing that if everything goes wrong, they can always switch to English. So great, good things. Some people need 7-7-10 because they want to work as a doctor or dentist and so on. So that's PD3 with high grades. And that's another ball game because it requires even more effort. But I have also many students who aim to pass PD3 with 7-7-10. But in today's talk, we're going to focus on what to do for 3 to 4 to 5 months preparation to coming with a initial PD2 exam background and coming from a country and a language that is very different to Danish, because you are obviously not. I have a German student. He's from Hamburg. He's a doctor, and he's picking up Danish so fast because German and Danish are so close to each other. So I'm, with this podcast and Zoom, reaching out to all of the people who come from countries around the world with cultures and languages that are very different to Danish. And this is, I think, your situation, and you still prevailed, you still succeeded. So let me ask you now, once you realize that Learning with Irvin exists, the website, and I provide lessons on Zoom with a focus on passing PD3, what did we do? How did the lessons go? How many lessons did you take? And what did you do in between the lessons in those 3 to 4 months?
Yeah, so actually, there are three main segments, right? Reading, writing, and then speaking. So in this case, actually, when it comes to reading, I was really looking for the starting point, and the good starting point that I got, it is like from the Lace of Stolze 3. There is a section in the Learning with Erwin how one should approach this OBGYM. Earlier it was called as OBGYM 2B, but now it become Lace of Stolze 3. OBGYM 3, yeah, so Del Pro 3. So that one with 4 different options for 8 questions. So it's like a lot of vocabulary to be improved. So then at one of those slides, I understood, okay, when we compare between the papers, for example, they remove it's a word appear for 5 times in last 4 years, or in last 4 years, for example, every year two exams we get. So then I started to realize, okay, this is the right starting point for me, kind of warm up. So if I cover 10 years of paper with these kind of important words, then I able to grab most important vocabulary, and that is like adjectives, adverbs, and some verbs and substantive. So I decided to follow the instructions or how the strategy was used in the website Learning with Erwin.
Mm.
Then I was applying the same strategy for the last 10 years of paper, where it really helped me to learn the words quickly, because whatever the word that is very important, I make sure to keep them in the front. So when I go through them, I revise them very often. And my objective was that time is to I should be able to recollect the meaning instantly, like how we speak in English. So that was my very good starting point. And when I get there halfway through, I felt myself. I didn't get in touch with anybody. I myself felt I'm getting there.
Okay.
I gained my confidence, and I realized with reading I got some sort of grip, because it's about 8 questions, and I'm learning the vocabularies, and vocabulary in turn I can use it in writing as well,
Mm.
especially the adverbs. So I know the meaning, so therefore I know when should I use it
Yeah.
based on the context. So it is helping me in other places as well.
Yeah.
And despite the fact, when I read important questions in Octave 1, sometimes these words are repeating, sometimes in the text, sometimes in the questions. So it's like a bonus, where when I cover one octave, sometimes I get the same things repeated. And then I decided to focus on Laser First Don't Say One, which is 15 questions, huge thing, rapid thing. I'm not really good in reading books, but here we really need to be, our eyes must be trained to scan the words. So I was going through the strategy how one should be prepared, and just to mock up the exam, only the laser first don't say one. I made sure to print out all the text possible, and then I was trying to scan the words here and there, and that helped me to speed up to answer the questions. When I start, I still remember I was able to answer only up to 6 questions, but then in the end of the October, after I go through around 10, 12 years of papers repeatedly, then I made sure I'm able to cover easily 12 to 13 questions in 25 minutes. And my target was like 10 to 11. So that gained me confidence in reading part. And to be I felt I need to be patient enough to read sentence by sentence and to learn more about. And I often felt vocabulary is the challenge for me in lesser Western, say 2A and 2B. So but in the middle of our preparation, somehow the pattern got changed, and then you again offered another free class for all the students who are doing PD3, and that also helped me how to approach this new octave. So I felt I'm decent enough when it comes to reading part, but as I said earlier, I was not confident, very confident in writing. Every week we agreed to have one class on Mondays, and it went very well. I I was able to learn how to approach the questions in writing. So, especially with grammar, what kind of mistakes I make. One thing I was setting in my mind is like not to repeat the same mistake. And when I make a mistake, I want to know why I'm making that mistake, how should I avoid. So these kind of questions, I usually prepare it in advance, and I put it in our document notes, and that helped me to not miss out any. points that I can or I must understand. I must understand to not to repeat.
Great.
So all those inputs were really helpful when it comes to writing, and I still couldn't believe I took because we had only one class in a week, and we started in September the class because the session that you offered was in the end of August, and
Mm.
we started in September, and we had about seven classes, I believe, for writing. 7 weeks, 7 classes. We were going through 6 question papers and couple of gave in blue class, how to write 2A, 2B email. So that really gained me confidence. First 3 weeks, I literally felt my head is becoming hot when I try to think. One thing I made sure is like not to use Google at all, but I must use my dictionary. Two reasons. I always make sure in the beginning I made sure to have dictionary, old one, not the new one, because new one I felt a problem when we turn the pages they stick together, and it takes some time to get the meaning, and every second in writing is very important, and the more we focus in or the more we use dictionary we lose a lot of time. So actually, I bought dictionary in second hand, more used one, not really sticky. And then I was repeatedly using the dictionaries, and that helped me as well. And few thinking, logical thinking in terms of how should we approach the questions, like so how some people think about it, how many people think about. So those kind of inputs were extremely valuable when it comes to writing.
Can you
And
repeat that? What type of inputs were important?
because we often get the questions about Vasinastu Om
Yeah,
or our own experience, and then your opinion about the topic, whatever we receive it, right?
right.
So on those topics, we often say we put our own perspective.
Sure.
Plus, we just to have our arguments more rich, we say like many people in Denmark think like this,
Right.
but I'm not. Instead, I'm thinking in this way. So it's a very good starting point to have an argument.
Sure. So,
And from yeah, so we have different parties. We are introducing different parties, and
mm,
then I'm putting my own perspective and I'm comparing it. And eventually, I'm saying what is good, bad with an example. Then I got the structure. Okay, this is how we should do it. And the most beautiful thing is I was able to use the same in Mundli. So and that's the point where I realized it's more or less that's the language. I felt okay, now we are learning language. That thing I came to know when I get full visualization, because the words, the vocabularies that I'm learning in reading, I'm able to use it in writing. The structure that I'm using in writing, I'm able to use it in Mundli while speaking. So it's full, that structure. And this, when we have this visibility, overall we have a good confidence.
great. Great. Let me just repeat, try and summarize what you just said. I think that was an important aspect. If I just share my screen so you can see my notes. So what you said before was many things. We talked about your approach to the different phases of the exam: reading, writing, and speaking. We know that at speaking exam or oral exam comes in the end, so you focused on reading, and you were working on the different types of assignments and how you were using parts of my online PD3 course to realize that the previous assignment called 2B, now called Opgave 3, focuses on having the right and using the right vocabulary and adding the right word to different sentences in a text. And you had a very systematic approach where you basically went through 10 past years exam papers. So that's like 2 exam papers. That's 20 exam papers. But that's basically 20 exercises where you basically looked through the text and the words, and you learned the words, and I think you put the words into a table, and you made sure you understand the meaning and the use of these words. What was good with this is not only did you gain your vocabulary, but you also said that knowing these words also helped you understand what was expected from you in the writing assignments, and it helped you boost your writing because you could write in a more elaborate way using these adverbs and adjectives that you had learned for this. So great. And that's what we could call smart learning, that you learn something for one part of the exam and you also apply it to another part of the exam. Same thing with writing. Once you learned how to assess, present, and discuss a problem statement from writing, you could apply the same thing to the oral exam. So that's something we have worked specifically on together. Instead of coming up with many arguments for a cause, you pick one argument. You say this is one argument or one advantage, in fordel, as they say in Danish, and then you learn to develop it. You explain what your argument is, and you come with a specific example, and you explain what the consequence of this example has on your statement, and how this how should we say is supporting or not supporting the problem that is stated in the assignment. So that's a way more structured and in-depth way of both writing and speaking, and that's this kind of academic PD3 way approach, which I think it's something that I also realized was really important. I have also learned a lot from our sessions together, and it's something that I will want to apply much more in my lessons with future students. And we've learned to present things as you start at the top of a circle, you do your statement, you provide some more information about what you're saying, then you come with a concrete example, and then you say the consequence of that, and you're back at number one saying, this is why I stated what I stated. And I think that's the way to approach it, but that's quite a specific way to write and to speak. But well done, because you managed to use things from the reading preparation and the writing preparation for example, oral and writing. So that was great. Good to hear.
I want to add one more thing, Elvin.
Yes.
When I see these notes, when we talk about this Google Translate, yes, definitely the recommendation is not to use, but I'm sure with the in my experience, I always tempted to use Google Translate, at least when I'm up to module 5 and PD2, until one incident came up.
Okay.
That is like as I said, I'm very much into the AMAB, and all the homework I usually do. One evening I was not able to do my homework due to very tight situation at my work, and therefore I wanted to inform this about to my teacher.
Yeah.
And I was using Google Translate that I miss homework today, and therefore I will do it on next working day. And when I was doing that, Google somehow suggested me with the word sauna Emarbeit.
I made homework. Yes, sauna, you know about it. Yeah.
And I didn't even realize it, and I posted it. And when I was in class, teacher said, okay, fine, but do you know the meaning of this? And I said, yes, and this is the meaning. And you are saying in English, but in Danish, it's completely different. You should say, yeah, mangla instead of. So then I realized, okay, Google is really suggesting wrong words and crucial moments, and the meaning is going completely wrong. Then even after that, whenever I wanted to use Google, I was trying this way, which also helped me in a way. The way is I don't type it in English, but I type it in Danish, and then I let the Google to translate in English.
Okay.
And in that way, I will try. If I don't get the right meaning in English, I keep modify in different lines for the same meaning, and that reasonably helped me
Okay.
not to disturb the language. I try to maintain that old stilling on all those framework to be maintained. That also approach that I took, where I felt it helps in a better.
Great. Thanks for adding that. That was important. I liked also that you bought a second-hand dictionary, because nowadays most students still take the PD3 writing exam analogically, or they have to write in hand, basically. I can't believe it, because it's the year 2022, almost 23, and we're still writing things in hand. This is great. You can get to preserve your handwriting. But you and I both know that most people spend most of their working time in front of a screen, writing emails and so on. So I think in the future, most students will start using a computer, a desktop, and then without internet, and there's an installed dictionary. But until then, excellent advice with getting a second-hand dictionary and getting used to using it, because obviously you want to save time in the exam situation, looking up words. Great. I'd like to talk about sacrifice, Kasi, because you have a job, you have a career, you have a family, you have a daughter, you have a wife. Say a few words about the sacrifice in terms in terms of time and health, and just general prioritizing, because people often, they contact me like, oh, can I book 5 lessons, that will help me pass? But all I do is giving some guidance, but at the end of the day, you put in a lot of hard work to get through it. And you also, we can hear this from the way you approach the vocabulary and your very systematic way, is that you realize the scope of the work, and then you put in some habits, and you follow them in a almost die-hard manner. You're like, this is how I need to do this. Halfway through, you realized, okay, this is working for me, because you could feel that you could understand more and more from the other assignments by increasing your vocabulary. So good to know for you that your approach was working. But tell me a little bit about the sacrifice and the time and effort you put into these months to pass PD3.
When I say sacrifice, first thing coming in my mind is like my vacation days. Uh, last 2 years, every year in Denmark, I believe we get 30 holidays where we can book it and take off. And out of which I haven't used any as a vacation. I still remember when I wanted to set out of office message from my mailbox.
Yeah.
I first time when I was setting it up, I was writing, "I'm going on vacation." Then I realized, oh no, it's not a vacation. Then I was really looking for the word. Then I said, okay, I'm out of office for the next 10 days. And I was, for the last 2 years, I was using this terminology. I was not using I'm going on vacation, because all the vacations that I booked is for either I need to prepare for my module exam or PD2 exam, PD3 exam. So I booked all of them. It sounds crazy. It looks like I invested that much time. So, from the level that means. So I invested around approximately 45 of my holidays, if I'm not wrong, around that much. And very minimum, yes, I booked in holidays or sick leave, different things. But main vacation chunk, all those holidays, I just used it as my out of office, and mostly I invested those time in preparing my language. Either it would be for my module exams, final exam in PD2, and then PD3 monthly writing, all those stuffs. Usually, I take. I have taken for PD2 also. I have taken around 10 days of holidays. Similarly for PD3, even more. I believe like 13 or 14 days combinedly for both reading and writing, because I want to get away from the stress or the work pressure. So if you really want to plan that, as soon as you register for your exam, plan your holidays at least a week, so you can come out of the work. Just make sure in your brain, in your knowledge, in your thinking, all what you have is your Danish PD3. Not to disturb anything. Don't listen to any other stuffs. Just get into the Danish mode. wherever you see, just make sure you see Danish words. Doesn't matter whether we learn it or not, but it's very important to be connected in that last 2 weeks. And
When you say the last 2 weeks, you mean the last 2 weeks before the oral exam?
write in the writing exam as well. The moment we start the writing exam, at least 1 week before the writing exam until the Mundli exam. So we have this much period, but just before the exam, 1 week we can take off. And in between the exams, of course, we go for work. That's fine. But uh, every day evening after the work, it's very important to start preparing the pictures, not to wait to receive the topic, because the time we finish the writing and the time that we wait to get the topic, this is usually 2 weeks of time. These 2 weeks we should focus on the objective, that is to present, to illustrate the picture and answering the picture questions related to picture. So those 2 weeks we need to prepare and facing those questions. And the moment we get the topic, then we need to switch the context, focusing on the presentation and the questions related to it. So that's how we could balance it, because everyone won't get those dates to go in the later part of monthly. So if we are in the beginning, we get very less time, approximately only a week, 5 working days plus 2 week, 2 days in weekend. So you get only 7 days to prepare your presentation and the questions to it. And that time, if you mix it up with the picture, then it may go in a different way. So first 2 weeks, definitely 100% focus on monthly pictures. And the moment you get the topic, that it's time to focus on the presentation and the questions related to it.
Great. That was very important.
So these are how so mainly I sacrificed my time, my leisure time, my vacation time, all those times I invested in learning Danish. But in second very important point, what I realized and I felt very bad about is spending time with my daughter. Whenever I want to learn Danish, I usually wait until 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, so that she gets sleep, and then I can focus on my studies without any interruption. But often she comes back and then calling me to bed to sleep, and as to sleep as a family. So see, she is also having a lot of expectations. At one point, I felt, am I doing too much, not really investing time on to take care of my daughter needs? So a lot of questions coming here and there, but these are all very temporary.
Okay.
So these are all just if we can focus properly, not really thinking about these small negative things, then you have something big coming in future. So mainly these two things, and because of that, I was not really able to travel longer period to India, because I often miss my Danish class. In the moment I say I'm traveling 3 weeks, 4 weeks, then I lose the momentum. Then it takes me some more time to get back to the regular schedule, what we do in terms of work and Danish in between. So the moment you go home 3 weeks, 4 weeks, then you really miss that. And when you come back, you get a lot of stuff to do at work, and at the same time, you need to gain the rhythm in the learning Danish. So that also something I had to sacrifice. I was not able to participate in most of the family events. I still remember in last 2 years I went only once. Yeah.
Great. No, but this is super important. You basically said like no travels back home, no long travels of 2-3 weeks, less family time, needed to wait until daughter's asleep. So those are all elements that people have to deal with. And we have a couple of minutes left, and I'd really like to try and break down the work effort, because you did. If we break it down, we said 1, 45-minute lesson. Did we do 45 minutes or 1 hour and a half per week? I don't remember.
Every week, 45 minutes, but you are so sweet. You never finished it in 45 minutes. It always go approximately 1 hour. Sometimes, if you don't have another student coming next, if I'm lucky enough that your schedule permits, it may go even 65 minutes. I still remember.
It's it
Yeah.
has to do with the workflow and learning flow. It takes some time to get into the flow, and then once student and teacher are like, okay, we're getting to somewhere, we're learning this. It's a bit of a shame, be like, oh, that's 45 minutes, we've got to stop. And I get very excited as well. I get encouraged, of course, when students and when we are learning and moving ahead. So that's great. But so just one 45-minute lesson, you paid around, I think 450 kroner. For new students, it's going to be 645, I believe, because I am simply, there's too much demand and I need to spend some time developing the website as well. But anyway, people can book it, 3 people together and split the cost. So that's one thing. But on top of that, you did, so that was your lunch break at work. Then every evening, how much time, once your daughter was more or less asleep, you would sit down and do like a session. I know you guys had a study group. You would go through exam papers, amongst other with Vivian, who has done a great job for the past 1 or 2 years with the Telegram group and encouraging everybody to work together, peer working and so on. So that was like an hour every night, every evening, Monday to Friday, at 9 p.m.
Yeah, so every week, Monday to Saturday, it's 9. It starts at 9 p.m. and gets over at 11 p.m.
Wow.
Most often we close around 10:50, 10:45, like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that really helped. But within those days, Monday is usually we spend mainly on Mundli.
Yeah.
And then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, for the rest of the days, we focus on reading. As I said, when I say reading, it even further deep dive, like which of gave this day. Like Tuesday, we focus on Lesavastolse 2A, Wednesday 2B, Thursday is Lesavastolse 3, like that. So it's very structured. We
Okay.
able to learn different strategy from different people, how people think. There were constantly around 8 people, 7 to 8 people who come very often, and it really helped how to process these kind of questions and stuffs like that. And we exchange our ideas often. The main advantage that I see in this group is not everybody is planning to just get pass mark. There are also people who join with the background as a doctor or nurse, where they are aiming very high marks.
Okay.
But when we get tips from those people, if your aim is to just get pass mark, and if you are combining your studies together with another person who is having a big target, that's an advantage for you. So that's what really happened to me in my group. Luckily, I had 2 people who were really targeting for very high marks. And whenever I have a difficulty with reading part, I often check with them how you are dealing this situation, whether you faced this or not. If you faced what, how you overcome. So that really worked for me. For example, I always had a confusion, how should I use the word namely?
Mm,
And the tips that I received from the people, after that, I never made that mistake.
great.
It always worked. And how should answer the questions wo for? Usually, how to find the text. We know the meaning. We need to know the vocabulary. But despite that, when we see the question paper, they always set some loopholes where we make mistakes. And it is also important to understand the type of loopholes that we get, and it always matches with the question patterns like wo for, what then. When the question starts with those words, we easily can see with the keywords like so, therefore, and it should usually go before that. So if you read carefully with this understanding, you know exactly in that text where to look upon, then your focus will be on that small paragraph within that big segment where you can save some time. So these kind of tips I got it through this group, which really helped me to uh, groom my scanning skills when it comes to first help care.
Kasi, thanks so much. Thank you so much for all of the in detail advice. I'm still we're out of time, unfortunately, but I'm very
Yeah.
curious to try and calculate more or less the amount of hours per week, because you said 145 lesson, 1 minute 45-minute lesson, then at least 1 hour online with your peer group on Zoom, working on papers and so on. Monday to Friday, that's like 5 hours plus my lesson. That's 6 hours already. What about weekends? How many hours would you work on weekends?
Weekends, Saturday, during the day, I don't do anything. I make sure I sleep in the afternoon for about 2 to 3 hours after my lunch.
Very
And
briefly,
that's,
we're out of time.
yeah. So I usually spend on Saturday night approximately 7 to 8 hours. Every Saturday night, late night, I spend and I sleep only in the early morning. So Saturday 8 hours, Sunday probably 4 hours.
Did you
So
say
12,
eight?
12, yeah,
Did you work 8 hours on Saturdays
yeah,
and 4 hours on Sundays?
yeah, yeah.
Wow.
This was my schedule from August to November.
So 12 hours plus the 6 hour,
Saturday, Sunday, I 100% I go to office
that's 18
because
hours. Oh my goodness. That's 18.
Saturday, Saturday and Sunday I always go to office because nobody there, nobody will disturb me.
But basically, we need to wrap up. But ladies and gentlemen, you heard it from Mr. Kasi. If you want to pass PD3, get ready to spend money on lessons with Irvin, access to Learning with Irvin's website, and spend work in working groups late at evening, sacrificing family time and time with your kids, and sacrificing weekends, working 6 hours Monday to Friday and 12 hours on weekends. Be ready to spend 18 hours per week for about 3 months, 3 to 4 months to pass PD3. Best of luck, Cassie. I have another student waiting. Thank you so much. I will share
Yeah.
the videos and the notes for everybody on social media. You are a goldmine of experience. I think people can reach out to both me and you for further help and advice. Do you have some last words before we finish our podcast?
No, I really wish everybody who is preparing for this goal, PD3, you can definitely do it. I still cannot believe that I managed to do it. And the moment you have the basic grip on learning the language, you won't feel that you are spending 10 hours, 8 hours. If I turn back, I myself wondering how I spent it. But the moment you get the language, when you spend time in grammar stuffs, time will fly just like that. So you will not really feel that you are spending that much time, but it is really worth it. Just if you are setting target to clear PD3, and if you are in the last moment like module 4 to 5, I would say just keep Danish only in your mind, nothing else. Finish it off, just 3 months, make it temporary, and then whatever you have is permanent, like happiness, no sorrows, anything. So no regrets.
And permanent
Yeah.
residency, hopefully in
Yes.
Denmark. Cassis, thank you so much. I cannot stay any longer, but
Yeah.
thank you for everything. And Merry Christmas if you celebrate Christmas, and see you in the new year. Yes?
Yeah, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, Erwin. I really wish you to grow even more and have a lot of chance and opportunities to help everybody like me. And I'm sure your courses, your website is also growing up on daily basis. I really feel it's really useful. Subscribe for it. It really helped me. You will get a lot of insights. Make use of your iPads. Always try to visit them very often. So I really wish everybody good luck. And Erwin, thank you once again for all your support, and I'm sure we will keep in touch.
Thank you, Cassie. Thank you for your kind words. All the best and see you soon. Best of luck to everybody out there.
Thank you.
Hi,
Yeah,
hi.
say hi. This
Tack
is
för mig. Hi, hi, Cassie.